to celebrate this evening of arts and listening and soaking this all up. We're going to begin with Judith. She'll be reading, and I'll introduce her in a minute, and then I'll introduce Raphael, and we can listen to Raph. And then we're just very briefly going to have a couple of questions if people have questions, and then we'll move into the part of the evening where you guys can buy books and get them signed and mingle and further kibitz and hang out and drink and eat. So that will be good. One thing that I want to mention is we thought, just so that everybody knows what social protocol is, we're going to have applause at the end of each reader, not between poems. You know how people always applaud at the wrong time in the symphony? The movement was over and a couple people don't know that. So anyhow, just so that you know exactly how to behave, we're going to have everybody applaud at the end of each speaker. Just putting it out there. Have I covered all the details that we discussed, the logistics? I think I've covered a lot of things. Okay. Well, let me just grab a little reminder sheet. Oh, not that I need a lot of reminders as to my relationship with Judith. As many of you know, I've known her pretty much my entire life. I am her son, actually, for those of you who don't know, since there are quite a mix of people here. So I am one of her first works. Self-published, actually, I think. But that aside, she's a very accomplished writer, a woman of letters, professor. Judith's a retired professor of English and Women's Studies at West Virginia University, where I hail from, where she spends part of her time. And she was founding director of the WVU Center for Women's Studies. I remember when she started it.
Yeah, Grandma.
Trailblazer.
Don't clap yet.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I knew Jen Brandon would clap early. Judith's published fiction, nonfiction, and literary criticism in Colorado Quarterly, in Frontiers, Journal of Women's Studies, College English, Green Mountain Review, and other journals and anthologies as well. She has an MFA in creative writing from Vermont College and has twice been a fellow at the Virginia Center for the Creative Arts. And as I said, bides her time between Morgantown and here. And I'm delighted that you all are here to hear you, who I'm delighted is here. So with no further ado, Judith.
So I haven't tested this yet. Is that going to work pretty well? Good. Actually, I don't think, David, you've ever heard me read.
That's
Not true? Okay, not true. Not true. Beginning with a lie.
Just try not to go to sleep.
That's right.
So I'm delighted to be the opening act for Rav. And we've just met recently, and it feels like we've known each other for a while, actually. And I'm very happy to be here, and this is an incredible event. And to see all of the pieces of my life brought together here. New friends in Columbia City, old friends through David and others, and thank you. So I'm going to begin with an excerpt from a book that some of you know, and some of you who don't know might get to know, and hope that you will enjoy it in either case. This is a book that was based on the journals I kept the year after my husband died in September 2007. Then I'm going to follow it with a brief selection from the book I'm writing now, which is called After the Eclipse. The first book was called Field Notes from Grief. And After the Eclipse is a book that's going to explore the territory 7 years beyond that death. Then there'll be a short narrative about being here in Seattle. And then with a very brief entry into Ruff's territory with a recent poem. First from Field Notes from Grief. What I've usually done when I've read from field notes is to read from the month that we are in at the time of the reading. That has seemed to be a way of getting back in touch with some of it. So we're in 2008, February 2nd. And funnily enough, I'm at a conference. As a fact, I am again. At the Writers' Conference, a panelist proclaims that humor writing is transgressive, catching the reader in the act of knowing. I like that. I look forward to my future writing. But when I walk confidently from one session to the next, grief's trap door opens, and I drip and drop, fingers grasping for a hold. I don't want to transgress. I don't want to be funny. I want to go home to my husband. February 4th. At LaGuardia Airport, the bank of phones from which I used to call my parents is gone. I loved checking in with them from the airport, imagining them in the kitchen, dawdling over coffee. Dad finishing the paper, looking for an address among his yellowing note cards. Mom might be finishing an article in the New Yorker or checking the date on a reminder postcard for a museum exhibit. Whatever battle between them had flared during the last minutes of our visit would have been forgotten or postponed. How'd you get there so quickly? That cabbie must have driven like a maniac, my father might have said. Coming down the escalator into the Pittsburgh baggage claim, I looked for Bob. Coming into the house, I looked for Bob. Hadn't I given him plenty of time to come home? When David and I talk on the phone later in the afternoon, he tells me he's read a story about the dead returning. But there's a hitch. They have their own ideas about what to do next, which freaks out the survivors. What would freak me out? What would I expect? What would I want to change? February 3rd. I'm home. Now what? In less than 5 minutes, I've misplaced my coffee cup twice. First, leaving it on the telephone table, next on the shelf outside the bedroom. I apologize to the cup for not concentrating on what I'm doing, and the cup accepts. The snow is so beautiful. I will take time to open the new bag of feed for the birds. The rabbis of the air, poet Philip Turman calls them. As I walk between my study and kitchen, between bedroom and basement, it occurs to me that I could save time if I set up Bob's study as my financial business headquarters. At the very least, I need an inbox and an outbox. I'm glad I went to synagogue last night. I enjoy being in a community of shared experience, singing the songs, accepting the hugs, but I can't ignore that I'm saying things, promising things, asking for things from a God I don't believe in. February 9th. Claudia's coming over to discuss our project, and I offered to make lunch. Shopping is much less fraught than the first time after Bob died. I'm happy to be getting grapes, flowers, crackers, and biscotti. Happy to be making the house attractive for a guest. On the drive home from the store, I listened to Ramsey Lewis. Very loud. It's sunny for February, and I feel like dancing. As I come down the driveway into my garage, I remember Bob's footsteps. Whatever he might be doing inside, he'd hear the car and come to help me unpack the groceries. I have a dream. Bob and I are on a wide beach. Can you raise that a little bit? I'll lose the light. Yep, that's good. That's good. Thanks. Bob and I are on a wide beach. He's enjoying his time on the blanket while I walk away over a small rise. From this spot, I realize that the beach is more expansive than we had realized, and that it disappears with a sweep into the ocean. I cannot see Bob from this spot, and I consider going back to share with him what I see. But I'm aware that I won't be able to describe it well enough to convince him to follow me, and so I will have spoiled things for both of us. I continue on my own, and I give my body over to a natural sandslide, which moves me along at a thrilling speed. Though I wish again for Bob to be with me, I enter the vast ocean alone. The 10th on February. The wild wind predicted for last night has come this morning. I hear its solitary whoosh and then the rattling sound as it pushes against the outdoor furniture covers. What if they rip? Will I know how to locate new protective coverings? What size would I need? What brand? Where's that catalog Bob ordered from? Oh, some shingles off the roof, a garbage can on the far side of the lawn, but the house is basically unscathed. I remember Bob shocking the roofers. Oh, how long ago was that? Joking about how many roof lives he still had. We were immortal then. Humor easy on our lips. Grief beyond the horizon. I dream about a performance artist who is pretending to cut up a male body. There's no danger. There's no blood. She's laughing at herself. But there's a clear sense of outrage and daring. She's stepping close to a line of decency, if not over it. I am fascinated. In my waking life, I have been talking about the surprises that come when one learns to live alone, unpartnered, doing things one assumed just got done on their own, doing things on her own. But nothing in these conversations suggested the bizarre quality of the dream woman's performance. February 14th. I remember Bob arranging to have a barbershop quartet come to the house and sing to me. Its paunchy leader giving me one deep red rose. I was embarrassed at first, then pleased. Other than that, we rarely recognize Valentine's Day. Maybe a card, maybe not. But last night, when no one called and no one that I had phoned returned my call, even though I assured them they didn't have to, I was hurt. It would have been evidence that in this day of commercial sanctioning of love, people stopped whatever else they were doing to make room for me. February 18th. Today begins the week in which I will be alone on Bob's birthday. Not exactly. I'll be with David at my brother's memorial. But Bob will not be there. 2/22/37. Those are the numerals he recited to the cancer center nurses week after week, complying good-naturedly with requirements to state your name and birth and date every single time you came. Now they are the opening of a phrase of a completed story. 2/22/37 to 9/1/07. The newspaper says there will be a lunar eclipse tonight. I feel implicated in the eclipse. That's an odd word, I know, but truthful. Even in an eclipse, a glow remains behind, pulsing in the darkness. And I hope you'll want to hear more from them. They're out there. So, it's on a book that I'm currently working on. Microphone. A little closer, thank you. Better? Okay.
Judith, are you selling futures to the new book?
Futures are on it? Yes. Yes, it is on the market, on the stock market. You can hear about it in the morning. I have finally removed the 1970s kitchen wallpaper, painted the kitchen walls, found new knobs for the kitchen cabinets. I have not yet put in a kitchen floor. I have used the word kitchen 4 times in the last sentence because I like how it sounds. Why do we hear the same advice from different people so differently? From one, it seems like kindness to be listened to or not as we choose, but assumed to be coming from love and a desire to be helpful. From another, sounds like criticism and lack of trust. Just what you might have expected them to say. In both cases, we're also having conversations with ourselves. While I was dialing the phone, although I guess we don't dial anymore, I mean even with a landline, but while I was dialing the phone, I saw a several-inch across spider between the spiral staircase and the dining room doors. I hung up before finishing and ran to one of the newly gnawed cabinets to get a glass to capture it. I don't kill anything I don't have to. But it was gone by the time I returned. Gone. Where? It was not as big as that capybara at the Madison, Wisconsin Zoo. Have you ever seen a capybara? It's the largest of the rodent species. No rodent should be allowed to get that big. And that humongous creature has never left the crevices of my mind. But what I saw was still inappropriately large for any normal indoor northern hemisphere spider. Gone. Where? On a whim, I almost sold my house in Morgantown last spring. My son was surprised, tried to be supportive, but he did warn, when you decide to sell a house, it will eclipse everything in your life for at least 6 months. It would have been a very big mistake. Catching my breath in relief while communing with the graceful koi in my garden pond, I realized I didn't have to move to placate that self-doubting voice. This house is getting to be too much for her. She wasn't I. And I just had to remember that nothing is perfect or permanent. I could wait. Then it was time to go inside. It was growing colder, and I had to pee. But it was hard to leave the gurgles of the waterfall, the languorous fish, and the soft breeze rock and rolling the daffodils. Stay a while, they said. Stay and record what might otherwise be forgotten or insufficiently treasured. Your garden. The garden you and Bob made together. But he would have understood had you decided it was time to sell the house. And he would not think you should be deterred from moving to Seattle just because of the article you just read about the mega-thrust earthquake bound to demolish the city. Last night's dreams reflected both turmoil and confidence. I'm still misplacing things. My fanny pack, oh, there it is. Oh, my key, yeah, there it is. Things lost for a moment, brief annoyance and panic, then found. A man and I are about to leave some large gathering at the same time. I'm driving. It's my car. He's busy socializing, profiling a little, and not anxious to leave. I'm indulgent of this tendency, but I will not be swayed or inconvenienced. I tell him I'm leaving at 6 p.m., with or without him. Later in the dream, he's no longer in it. I'm planning to drive somewhere with 2 female companions and pretending more confidence than I actually feel. I'm not sure of the directions, and there are steep hills and therefore maybe snow involved, but I don't think I'll back down. Awake, I have to say that on the whole, I've become the person I used to envy, and I find her very appealing. Occasionally fearful, occasionally confused, but on the whole, confident and kind. A woman after my own heart. So somewhere along the way, my grief counselor suggested that it was time for me to entertain the idea of a new relationship. So I told her I was doing very well, thank you. I was enjoying my independence and 43 years of a happy marriage. And more recently, I told her that if I was to get involved, it would have to be someone very special, or else a completely irrational act. And at which point she said, why, either or. Very good counselor. Well, I have fallen in love. And it is something very special, and completely irrational, I have fallen in love with my couch in Seattle. You have heard right. I have fallen in love with a couch. Now, I am not using the word love in that careless way people use it. You know, I love ice cream. I love that dress. Not even the way someone else might use it when they say, I love that couch. No, I mean love. Now, it might help you to understand that this is my first time. The first time I have taken full responsibility for choosing such a large piece of furniture. My husband Bob and I had 2 couches before this. One at a time. We were faithful to each other and to our furniture. One we bought from a department store that no longer exists. Not in Morgantown and probably not in the U.S. But the second time, black leather, we were earning more by the time of that purchase, still lives, content, I hope, in our Morgantown home. But the Seattle one, mon amour, gray tweed, tufted, streamlined. Now this one I'm in love with. It's the real thing. Now how do I know? Well, first of all, I talk about it constantly. Then there's that telltale intensity out of all proportion to what the beloved, however lovely, could ever possibly objectively deserve. Then the conviction that I've been miraculously chosen from all others to enjoy this loveliness, and the fear that follows that conviction. This is too good to be true. I don't deserve this. Something could go wrong. And I must admit, the attached label did give me a scare. All those warnings about flammability. For a moment it seemed irresponsible, even self-destructive, to bring such a danger to my home and life. But rationalization came to my aid, as it often does in matters of love. And I remembered, I don't know a single person who smokes anymore. Just to be sure I wasn't exaggerating, I looked to other writers for corroboration. For now I'll mention only one, Elizabeth Barrett Browning. I hadn't read her best-known sonnet for years, and I must admit the title, How Do I Love Thee, was more satisfying than the rest of the poem. But it begins well. How do I love thee? Let me count the ways. I love thee to the depths and breadths and height my soul can reach. It's amazing. How did she know? Depth and breadth and height. My couch provides the perfect combination of comfort and support. It's wide enough to sleep a guest, and not so high as to block the view from my window out to the mountain and the lake in the distance. And then occasionally there's the sun, even in Seattle, more sun than you would think, especially when you're in love. And while I cannot promise, as Elizabeth does her sweet Robert, that if God chose, she would love him better after death, I can promise that for the time being, I will shout my couch's praises to the world.
I want to clap.
Nicest compliment I've ever had. And to conclude, an old woman considers her nipples as she showers, and once again finds them too pink. Too pink for what? Another old woman, or maybe the same one, asks. The pink might not matter so much were the nickels pert, like those she recalls from her first dirty book, Harold Robbins, A Stone for Danny Fisher. But, except when aroused, thank God for that at least, they lay dull against duller circles. On the whole, her breasts were fine. She remembers clearly the year they came into their own, bursting on the scene in grateful response to that gorgeous blue scoop neck she wore, walking to the river to throw away her sins. Dressed for Rosh Hashanah, she walked tall and proud as the eyes of neighborhood boys bored between the cloth, beneath the cloth. Her husband had never complained, and she had not brought the subject up. You're pretty enough for all normal purposes, he told her more than once. She's aware that flat on the page, that remark sounds mean, but she hears his voice in the context of his undying love. Yet, with her 70 years old and him 5 years dead, she wonders as she steps from the shower what she might have done had her husband asked her to paint her nipples darker. With something non-toxic, of course, since now she imagines she might have agreed. And she's looking backward and looking forward to having him lick off whatever the hell she had painted on. Or maybe she just handed him the brush.
It's a really nice couch. So, Jen, don't make me get out the sergeant at arms. Actually, thanks for letting us all release the applause. Much wanted. Raphael, it is a thrill to have you here on the occasion of your book launch. Thrilled to have your publisher here. And I keep flipping back and forth between the wonderful dual aspects of having you here as an accomplished author on an important milestone occasion and as a dear friend of well over half my life. And many of us here know Rolf, and many of you are going to get to know him here tonight under these special circumstances. So, again, thanks for you in the audience. Thanks you, Rolf, for being here. And Rolf was born and raised in Baltimore, Maryland. Rolf Dagold's poems, fables, and photographs, all of which I've seen firsthand and have been much moved by, have appeared in Frank, in Northwest Review, in Born, in Western Humanities Review, Two Girls Review, and other publications as well. And he's taught writing and literature at University of Utah, at Lewis and Clark College, just down the road, and other institutions. And Raphael has won fellowships and awards from the UCross Foundation, Oregon Literary Arts, and the Association of Writers and Writing Programs. And on the occasion of this book launch, there are both books there, just so you can view them. On that grand occasion, it's a pleasure to welcome you, Raphael.
That's great. Thank you so much. All these assistants is terrific. Can you come home with me? I'm just so happy to be here, and I want to thank everybody for having made this happen, and all of you for coming, which is no small part of obviously making this happen. So thank you to everybody. I'm going to read 5 or 6 poems from the book, from Bastard Heart. And then I'm just going to read 2 or 3 poems from a new manuscript. Learning to eat apples. My father is driving the blue Ford Falcon. I am in the back seat with my brother. We're on our way to the synagogue on Sunday morning. We've each had an apple and wonder what to do with the cores. Should we, after we've been through the whole sweet crunch, the skin, the juice mixing its sugary tang in our mouths, Should we know what to do after the first bite of the whole fruit, after we've bitten off as much of the last pulp as we possibly can with our little teeth? Should we know what to do with the cores? Maybe we should put them in the ashtray. Maybe that's what I say before our Father says, "Here, give them to me. I'll eat them." Maybe our Father doesn't really know what to do either, so he makes gnashing noises as he eats, until the complicated middle is gone inside him, the plasticky slivers around the seeds themselves, whole or half chewed, down to his stomach, where I wonder if they'll grow a little before he digests them, or if he'll grow a resistance to the cyanide I know even then laces apple seeds. He puts the dry stems in the clean ashtray. And it's fun, our Father being goofy. No one in their right mind would eat an apple core and like it. It's from a time before we were born. The frugal happiness and pleasure in efficiency. His large fingers bigger than the skinny cores. His answer to waste, simply not to end up with any. Our mother will pick us up after noon and take us to her house for the day, or maybe for the week if regular school has just let out, and we have brought our suitcases. We will go with her into the city and our other life. Eating apples next time with our Father, he'll know what to do, and the time after that, he'll pretend that he likes it, his favorite part, what he wants more than anything. As Dave mentioned, I was born and grew up in Baltimore, and as that poem might make a little bit clear, I sort of had two lives there. I lived most of my time with my father and stepmother from the age of about 4 in the suburbs, just outside of the city limit in Baltimore. And my mother, my brother and my mother, lived down in the city itself. So we would be there on weekends, and we would be there for longer times in the summer and things like that. And so those things show up in a number of poems, including in this one, which is really about my father's grandfather, who also grew up in Baltimore, in the city. So there's kind of interesting connections there in my personal life there. This is called Spinoza. How many times did he tell me of walking to the civil service exam, down melting sidewalks of Baltimore, to get all the questions right, to finish first and be the only one that day to shine? A Zionist in vain, who searched Israel for his family's holy path, a path perhaps he saw in the libraries and museums he took his children to after a week's worth in Saturday morning's call to the synagogue. He read Spinoza and raised a battered forefinger in his retelling, a poor ecclesiast to boast in monologue of all he'd gathered as he put 10 rubber bands around a bag of chips, and we nodded at his words. And in the last decade of his life, he came upon us in our shady suburb, visiting longer than anyone wanted, sneering hurt from our grudges to sulk away folded in the aluminum lawn chair up from Florida. I didn't understand the ancient words our rabbi spoke across the cemetery's lawn, any more than I knew why my grandfather had poured ketchup over everything he ate. But I felt those words and cried before standing in line to trowel dirt on his coffin. We are the light of the Lord. We will help you to be on your way. As he rode the mail train up the Northeast Corridor, organizing zip codes, the engine and freight cars rushing, then screeching down in their wind. What was he thinking when he threw out letter bags onto the train platform? about Spinoza and his many-headed God, about the equity of atoms in an arc. He must have been a completely different person each day by New York. Who then is given me? The worker, the philosopher, the pedant, the worrier? He did tell me, stop your reading and go out. Called me absent-minded professor when I left my crystal radio project out on the kitchen telephone table. Yet I had seen him leaning into the dial, plugged into its tinny earphone, mouth half open, with his furrowed brow and bony nose I have the shadow of, tuning in the old world, hearing a new and slighter one. Page 49. It's so exciting to have a book that has numbers. You know? And I'm like, okay, the next poem is on page 49. I know where that is. It's after page 43. Is after this page? Okay, I can find. There it is. All right. Perfect. This poem is called Getting on a Horse. My mother is drawing a horse on the kitchen wall. The horse is a gesture of a horse, drawn idly, with scant, quick strokes of a bold pen or marker, her left hand surer than her right, which cradles the telephone, connecting her to someone else, the horse a mind a mile away, dreaming of soft straw, light hooves, sweet apples. Where is her mind? Stroking the rough wood paneling, boards really, nailed side by side and stained dark. Where is her mind, stroking the wood with her pen? She is a girl drawing a horse. After she leaves, the horse stays. I stand in the kitchen or walk through the door to the backyard. I imagine her standing there. I show my friends. I'm proud. A horse, riderless, its owner away. This next poem is the title poem of the collection. And I spent some time in Wyoming at this place called the U-Cross Foundation. It's an artist colony. There were only a few people there at a time. I was there for a month. And after being there, some of the natural world that I'd experienced there came in and became elements and metaphorical elements for an emotional landscape that I was going through at the time. This is one of those poems, Bastard Heart. The blackbirds are ripping a hole in the sky. They are like minnows, a wave swallowing itself, and a heart. They are a heart, a hole, a house, where long rents divide the rooms, a house that one by one collects itself among the angled millet, ruffling shells of bird bodies in each place among the rooms, among the heart they've made themselves into, heart a break in sky to never close. Why they are collecting so many black and glistening mouthfuls, why they place themselves veiled before fluttering up in another wave, is anybody's bastard heart to fill a mouth. They are. And they are turning wings so thin, invisible between the gravel and the foothills sage. Of course they cut the sky in unpeaceable halves. Of course the brains of heart conjoined by merest bolts of what it doesn't understand. Of course the heart turns broadside with its emboldened windows, its flat glass of old divided lights turns flat to whipped wind. Of course the bird's black wings turn the same wide dark, each the same time, like the unschooled flock, an open house, the heart is. It occurs to me that I have to apologize because I don't really have like little funny poems to sort of break up this stuff, and all I can do is say I'm sorry.
You could invite limericks.
I'll do it. This is a poem called Voltage. It has a what is this called? The little words that are underneath the title. What?
Epigram?
An epigram. Thank you. I always forget that. That's one of those things.
It's very literary.
Voltage. The best image to sum up the unconscious is Baltimore in the early morning. Jacques Lacan, 1969. Aaron believes he can send voltage with lantern batteries hooked in series through the air to his balsa airplane. It'll fly across his room, even beyond, as far as the small harbor where we talk, bumming around on cobblestones, looking for cigarette butts with enough tobacco left for Aaron to smoke. In the middle distance, a tug pulls a trash barge, gulls squalling over the heap. Nearer, almost close enough to touch, the red-painted shark mouth of the USS Torsk gleams its jagged teeth toward Broadway Market, its produce stands, fishmongers, greasy dives. Aaron again explains his theory of voltage, how number 14 Bellwire from Sam and Delbert's Variety is perfect for the popsicle stick windings. The unlit skeleton of the Domino Sugar neon traces itself against the blue sky across the harbor. Down the block, pigeons light on the Angel Tavern sign, marking its wooden wings with white dirt. And one last poem that I'll read from Bastard Heart. At a window wide to September. Late sun illuminates benign insects, making slow chaos, a hover, a spin, a brief flotilla above the lilacs, above the 2 aspen we planted, their thin forms without hips, their leaves rattling like early dry tongues. In fact, I have no idea if the insects are benign. 2 weeks ago, we talked as plainly as the low sun making the bugs visible, giving them their sultry glow. We spoke without rancor or our customary weapons. We spoke knowing we would leave each other. Now my hands are in my lap, our hearts, dirt and stone, and small animals in our chests. So as I said, I'm going to read just 3 poems from a new manuscript I'm working on. And the first poem I'll read is one, it's the first of what I hope will be a bit of a series. I watch a lot of movies. I'm really into film. And film noir is a genre that particularly moves me. But it wasn't until I was in the middle of Montana, in a renovated ghost town for 10 days, writing, that it occurred to me to write a poem about film noir. It took that place. Viewing noir. In Louis Malle's 1958 Elevator to the Gallows, Jean Moreau walks through the night in Paris rain, looking for her lover, who has just killed her husband but now is trapped in an elevator, the building's main breaker off for the night. The lover smokes each cigarette in his half-pack. The husband sits slumped at his big desk, shot with a military pistol. But enough about them. Moreau, famously without makeup through the film, not her choice, Moll twisted her arm. Moreau, on a sidewalk haunted by the Miles Davis score, walks slowly, her face followed for what, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, in an unbroken tracking shot which seems to continue longer than the film itself, Jean Moreau's face bereft. Except that's not the way it happens. In fact, Moreau spends more time seeking in cafes, a bar, a newsstand, her lover's friends, colleagues, jealous competitors to hear of a recent sighting. And we see, above a dark sidewalk lit by a single street lamp, Moreau's forlorn eyebrows, the downturned corners of her lips, only for interspersed seconds before she rounds a corner or steps the curb to traffic which narrowly misses her dazed frame. In Fritz Lang's movie M, of course, it's the killer's face we care about. Peter Lorre's tortured pedophiliac expressions, the only ones we get in tight close-up, so that his is the only face we remember. It's the only face in the world, and it must be yours. You must look in the toy store's plate glass with the horror of your falling smile at the reflection of the girl whose head is not shown to the film's viewers, but whose balloon is caught by electric lines and camera both for a long minute. Your eyes must bulge, and when you have noticed the pickpockets, the child bakers, the runners for the game boss's earnings, and the petty thieves all on the mark, and the mark is you, you must run into an office building as its workers leave for home. But that's in 1931. In 58, you may watch Jean Moreau, her saddest face, wet forever, looking for her lover, her doomed killer. I spent some time in the Utah Museum of Fine Art, looking at art, and thinking, I wonder if I could write a poem from one of these works of art. And I saw for the first time ever, for some reason, I'd never seen a painting by the French pre-impressionist, I guess, Camille Corot. And one of the poems really, one of the paintings really spoke to me. And so I went to the gift shop and I bought a postcard of a different poem and took it home with me and looked at it long enough to write this poem. Memory of the countryside near Boisy-Saint-Léger, Camille Corot. There was a road below and a distant hill which did not meet it. Two women spoke, one seated, of their husbands, of their broad faces turning narrow with each winter. There was a tree giving itself to a cloud, or the tree, a green storm, billowed as the sails of a ship might, and the cloud answered. There was a cloud, the color of sky, rushing to the tree's defense. One bird sang, notes turning to leaves before I heard them. Or the leaves, in any case, the sky never is blue. That day was 50 years ago. The dark, near-noon shadow of the oak surprised me, where nothing is, from where the women might have stepped, to which this painting owes all its parts, even light, tiny pieces of white sky floating onto fallen grass, collecting on the cap of the upright woman. Perhaps I should have married, after all. And I'll close with this poem. Which I'll introduce with its title. The Last Urinal.
I hope not.
That would suck.
What is though?
the last urinal before the highway entrance, I find the condom still hangs pathetically on. What do I do, caught with my own smallness, the crack-smoking streetwalker miles behind, who kindly bought my lie about the envelope of Coke in my white boy shirt's breast pocket? My friend waits outside in his Celica, the car he ran into a side rail in suburban woods, the dark quiet of trees, ferns, asphalt behind his wide eyes, blanched and quivering lips. I can't believe it, I can't. But we do believe. The lull in the cicada's thrum, more present than the racing engine which had landed us there. Nearby, a girl lives with whom I passed notes in math class, hung hopes on, despite her boyfriend, whose car I rode in each day to school, until one night they made out on one end of her couch while I sat scrunched on the other. When I was small, my mother owned an out-of-service U.S. mail truck behind whose sliding gate we kids rode bouncing as she drove. Parked at a mall, I asked to go in with her to use the bathroom. "Just piss in the well," she says. My brother and I discuss her meaning. I decide the wide step up to the truck's cab is called the well. Returning to a yellow puddle, she says, "What were you thinking?" Asks, "What did you do?" Thank you.
Thank you. Wow. Well, like I said, why don't we take just a couple minutes for a question or two that are on everybody's lips or that somebody is dying to ask, and then we'll move into the rest of the evening. Any takers? No? Don't have to be? Okay. Oh, yeah.
Well, I started this conversation, but didn't get fully into it with Judith before. When a person dies, they're at a funeral, just the most marvelous things are said. And there's, as my friend Linda said, there's kind of a sense of obligation to the deceased to not say anything that's not, laudatory. And so I'm interested in the territory of grief, about how the juxtaposition of the view of the beloved, and you want to have that superb view and that upwelling of what is, and at the same time there's the normal human friction that went on, and after the point of death, how do those two reconcile? How does one deal with that?
Do you want us to respond, try to respond, or you want other people? I mean,
I'm happy to let my angst hang in the wind, or a response would be welcome.
I don't think this is a direct answer, but it's something that I do think about, and it's kind of how maybe you probably do too. I mean, how do the living use the dead? Might be another way of asking that question, and what use we make of them as we continue in our own lives. I mean, a lot of what I'm thinking about in the second book is that not only is it 7 years since my husband died, but I am 7 years older, and therefore 7 years closer to my own death. And I think that's just an interesting thing to me, that what his death now means is different than what death means. It's not that I think about, anymore, because I think about it all the time and always have. So there's that. But the other thing that occurs to me is also how we use the dead. I'm always very annoyed when people say that someone who's died, that they're now doing exactly what that person wanted them to do. He would have wanted me to do that. I think people need to take responsibility for what they do after the people who have died.
Yeah.
We don't know that they would want that. They might, but that's one that I think about a lot. I mean, there's some he might be very happy that I'm here. Might be jealous that I'm here.
Jealous of the couch, maybe.
Jealous of yeah, certainly jealous of a lover. Yeah, so if I said, he would have liked that. I don't think so. So that's not a direct answer, but it's what your question made me think about.
Have you been to an Irish week?
No,
Okay.
something to look forward to, I guess.
I was just thinking, after listening to Roth's reading most recently, how much I wanted to hear all of them over again. I mean, I was paying as close attention as I could. And the second a word passed or a phrase, I wanted to hear it again, and I kind of looped back, but then the next one came, and I wanted to hear them all over again right then. And I'm, from the nodding heads, quite certain you all do. Well, you can. And
First, do we have the audiobook?
that's a great idea. Well, Silverfish
We have to go
Review
up to the
Press.
bathroom to get the
That's right. Silverfish Review Press, Roger Moody, publisher. A book a year, as I understand it.
Well,
For
in
a
the
long.
competition, in the first book competition, there's another series. I've done as many as 4 books in 2012. 2 of those are reprints. I've done 3 new books in a year, but on the average it's 2 books. 2 new books a year.
Great. Wow, and for quite some time. And an independent press in this day and age, I'm glad. Thank you for your tireless work and for this connection and for being here with a stack of books that are available. And Judith has a stack of books as well. And a lot of people have contributed to this evening already. Laurel named many of them. And I encourage you all to keep contributing to be able to relive the words and play them over. Years ago, Judith gave me incredible permission for something that hadn't really occurred to me before. I don't know if you even remember this. And I think she'd be glad I'm saying this. I remember years ago, I don't know if we were out at a bookstore together or if we were just talking about books, but you had given yourself permission, and then by proxy I took permission, that, you know, it's okay to buy books and keep them by your bed even if you never read them. That it's okay to have kind of a trophy book. And there are books that I have that are by the bed that I won't move away to the bookshelf because they just feel good. Some of them I think I know I'll never read. Others I'm still convinced I will read. But some of them, they just need to be there. And so, you know, there's that whole category of reasons why you should buy these books, right? Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't read them, right? You'll want to read them, and that's important too, but you don't have to read them just to get them. You know, they'll feel really good there. And actually, they do both feel really good. I mean, so I encourage you to go over, pick up a book, and, you know, when you go to get your coat, and you go buy the book, go buy the book. I mean, buy the book. Yes. And also the authors are here to sign them. So please mingle, enjoy. What's that? Oh, right, thank you. Cash and credit cards, even checks are available as purchase mechanisms through Roger. I believe Judith is taking cash and Bitcoin. And anything else either of you want me to say about the books, or Roger, before we transition?
No, I think we're good. Earlier, my reader wouldn't work, but I think I have to adjust the settings to your Wi-Fi.
Oh,
Because
okay.
right now I'm set on the conference center Wi-Fi.
Gotcha. Okay, so we'll give you the password, and you'll be up and
I think all I have to do is follow the setting prompts in the tablet, and I'll be okay.
Well, we'll give you a second to do that.
Okay.
The authors will be up here, pens in hand, and thank you all so much. Enjoy the one, and thanks to the authors.
I'm so glad you came. I haven't seen you in so long. Thank you very much.
I really do. I mean, I play half game about
Yeah.
hearing it read.
Right. I really.
Books of poetry ought to come with this.
Yeah. I mean, I really enjoy reading the poems out loud, and it always is something different for an audience. There's so much energy there. You know, so are we going on? I haven't yet from the book. I mean, I read a lot, but this is my first real reading from the book. And but I've been setting up readings. I've got one set up in Salt Lake City at a bookstore. I've got one set up for Portland State University, and also Clackamas Community College, which is just south of Portland, and hopefully a third in Portland while I'm there. And that's all like mid-April. And then hopefully going down to Eugene, also right after that. And I've got another reading in Salt Lake City. I was invited to read at this locally prestigious reading series at a small college called Westminster College. It's right in Salt Lake City. And they're like well funded. They have enough money to have like full color posters, you know, and to give honorarium of not just like $50 or $100, but like $500, you know. Yes, and a class visit. I'll visit a class and talk to kids about, you know, poems. But so you know, I'm working on getting more readings and review copies into people's hands. A journalist across the street hooked me up with another journalist in town. And you know, there's so many possible things to do. It's been a full-time job for the last couple of years, actually.
Yeah, Columbia City Theater. So, but wouldn't have missed this for the world. I really love that. And I can't wait for
All these people, I mean, why not you money? Yeah, so we'll figure that out. I don't think it's until Sunday, late afternoon. Yes, and so I'm kind of like a late bloomer.
Okay.
Video.
Roger,
Not video.
Roger went.
I don't know where he went. There he is. Roger is right. Okay. And I learned later that like my high school friends had no idea. They had no idea. So like so other neighborhood, like, and they were all scared. Yeah. I think I'm like
It's kind of like you never know. My fourth one.
Yeah, me too.
I was thinking the same thing.
Oh, I thought he had. But I saw him working with it. Right. Is it working though?
Less than 50% of all the people that graduate get a job in their field. You know, you're not going to paper have a job at fast food. You're not. You know. So
Yeah, I wasn't surprised.
those guys have to get together with the guys exchange. You know, subsidized arms industry. You know, they don't care. They don't care that they destroy people in the 60s. And politics sort of work on that sort of mindless in principle, and especially how goofy and great. They've got an agenda that's a nice list of stuff. That's what they say. Well, the Civil War would have brought us 2 third-rate powers. That's what it would have brought us. you're dealing. So you're an antiquarian, Western. So you know, It's got a picture of Emily Dickinson on the cover, and he did forged letters by Emily. Forged letters by Lincoln. Essentially, that was his form of action. It's a misleading thing of what it is. This guy, essentially what he did was, they raised the ornament because it was so what he did was he forged these letters. You know, we had another revelation. But anyway, so this guy forged these. So there are various people that circle around. Go to the elders.
Yes. This was an awesome literary event. I know you guys are cut out. Literary salon.
It is a salon.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's what it was. Yeah. There were tons of. They were all.
Library.
Yeah.
The libraries around the country, and he would steal the newspapers out of the books.
Yes.
Read it the right way.
Yeah.
Here's the pen. So, this guy had way far.
So many people. And then get a
photographed it all and then you take photo. And you can tell it's because it was dented a little deeper, the paper was dented a little deeper, and I think it was a little brighter than the original. This swindle, this is a huge swindle. I did a really
What is the dream?
big
I see you smoking out. Oh, okay. I'll be home very soon.
And you've been working on it?
Yeah, I so what are you gonna do? Well, you know what? We could have like a gallery Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I really have a three pieces like and he said, oh, I remember. And the week before he came to town, 2 weeks ago, he basically said, he's thinking about the idea, maybe we can do it. And then it's just blossomed into this. She said, oh, no. And then we called all our friends. We have another friend who does music house parties who said, I have chairs. I've never been here. Did you see the tiny little commercial district before this? Oh, look, that's kind of the hard right? Yeah, that's downtown. Right? We're in the suburbs up here. Yeah, right. Yeah, so McClellan and then Church up the hills, and
this is stuff like
well, it runs, the realtors will tell you that it runs all the way down to 10th Street. Yeah, but really you just go a few blocks down here. Do you know where National That's where it turns into a shop.
45 minutes to wait for it to start.
Good thing we put our sign out front. It's still there, I think. Yeah, it says.
All these people get all these people there's this real
Yeah, it's a big enough apartment you can come in and to see more
bottom shelf.
Yeah. I just remember, what was it? Was it Peter's that we were jumping off of? Wasn't that what it was called? Cock Rock. Much better. Yeah. But right. Yeah, I remember jumping off that.
One little adventure, once we got burned out of the camp, but wildfire.
Teenagers. Oh, it is the teenagers thumping on the fans.
Yeah, it's upstairs.
Yeah. I think it's teenagers upstairs.
What'd you say?
Yeah, right.
We're afraid you can't hear us. Good to meet you. Mike. Yep.
Before they
Okay.
Steve. I came by to pick up the music stand today. I keep the
Well, next time I see a canoe going down there, I'll ask you. I have a friend who's still alive. He went down the main stem of the salmon in a lake running canoe.
Oh, gotcha.
A few days down, he had to pull over and find a tree to put the bow in. Left it straight in the bow.
Well, I got a similar down there, and there's a guy oh, really? So, in the house you're working out, the thing he says, where did you put in? I said, well, take that too, the rap.
And you're accepting me so far.
Good for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Well, let's schedule it. You pick a time. That's the first time like 6, right?
Yeah, it's close to the canyon. One long stretch of agricultural.
Happy to serve.
Well,
And by the way, like this, I'm about to this little ways. Up 3 houses down, you see a blue truck show up.
Oh, thanks to you. That's awesome. Yeah, right. No, man, are you sleeping? I'm sleeping.
on the canoe. And now it's on your parole.
For 2 years.
Yeah. I might have to get a shot at that.
Well, it's right this side of the screen. This right there.
I'll look for it. Nice to meet you, Steve.
Taking off. Okay. Cheers. See ya. Oh, okay. Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's so funny. I told you about that consulting firm that I was part of. It blew up. We were in a houseboat right near. Oh, okay. Yeah, so we were on Hamlin. You say the Hamlin? Yeah, I remember being there. And the office is just like okay, I think these are folks from Judith's apartment in the same building. So now you've gotten to see this side of Judith. Oh no, just say hi.
Congratulations, by the way. Oh, Judith.
Yeah.
Oh, I got this thing.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
I wanted to do this in black. So many good choices.
It's my first choice, but if I got into the three schools, then I'd probably just say hockey.
So you still might hear about
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually, yeah.
Okay, oh, did you turn off the recorder?
You can
Thanks.